2022 meeting of the Recreation Education Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chairman Alcoffer.
Here.
Chairman Alcoffer is present. Mr. Baines. Mr. Baines is present. Mr. McCabe. Here. Mr. McCabe is present. Ms. Vasquez Simmons. Here. Ms. Vasquez.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Next, we're going to have a presentation. I would like to introduce Robert Franklin, Chief Financial Officer of Monroe County, who's here to present the 2023 proposed Monroe County budget as it pertains to the Recreation and Education Committee. We will have a question and answer period following the presentation. Mr. Franklin, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I should have jumped up here in between meetings and swapped out presentations. I can add. Not bad. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Recreation, education, appropriations. Ladies and gentlemen, as in prior years, the four relevant areas to Rec Ed include our Parks Department, Monroe Community College, our library system, and what we refer to as our authorized agencies. If I can look at our Department of Parks first. I'm not going to read this slide. I'm going to talk a little bit different. Total appropriations for our Parks Department are rising roughly $3.3 million next year. The budget adds 7.5 FTE positions. I'd like to point out retention bonuses account for about $768,000 of the total $980,000 increase in payroll. Benefits are increasing another $454,000. I'll note bonding in 21 and 22 for our zoo project added about $917,000 in debt service. Other notable increases include a slightly higher chargeback from fleet, and that's about $331,000, and that's due to the rising cost of gasoline and diesel fuel. Higher utility costs directly charged to the Department of Parks of $274,000. And just a general inflationary cost increase of supplies and materials. That's about $166,000 in the Parks budget. Now, Parks revenues largely offset those cost increases, including in their revenues, allocating $850,000 of our hotel occupancy tax revenue to the zoo. And I'll comment that pre-pandemic, that allocation was $1.525 million. The Department of Parks revenues are also increasing an additional $855,000, and that's related to their lodge and shelter rentals and their golf course operations. If I can quickly look at our Monroe Community College, Monroe County, as you know, is the sponsor, and our contribution as its sponsor is increasing by $750,000 as previously agreed to by the legislature back in August. And with just small changes in MCC's debt service and our use of our reserve for bonded debt, net county support for MCC actually comes down a little bit in 23, lower by roughly $40,000. For the Monroe County and Rochester Public Library system, we see a modest 1.4% increase in overall appropriations. There is a slight shift from the countywide system to central services. Net county support also comes out a little higher. So it's really comprised of our payment to the city of Rochester for central services. Net county support also includes our debt service for the library. And lastly, the county's cash capital contribution for their information systems. Last but not least, just a few comments regarding our financial support for arts, cultural, and educational agencies. These entities are supported to a large extent by the county's hotel occupancy taxes and to a much smaller extent, county property taxes. The most notable changes you'll see in the budget book in support for our arts, cultural, and education include an increasing amount of support for small and mid-sized arts organizations. We're increasing that by 500 grand. It was 500 grand in the 22 adopted budget. It'll be $1 million in the proposed 23 budget. We're also adding $200,000 to support local festivals previously supported through Comida. And we are seeking to add 3 new specific entities with $60,000 awards each to Avenue Black Box Theater, Hochstein School of Music, and Garth Fagan Dance. Mr. Chairman, more than happy to field questions when I return to the admin table.
Thank you. I will now open the floor to any committee members who have questions regarding the recreation education portion of the budget. Floor is open. Legislator McCabe?
The legislator with a breakdown of all the positions that fall under a portion of the 2023 budget that are authorized, funded, and vacant. This breakdown should include title, corresponding budget amounts of salary, retirement, social security, contribution, medical insurance, and dental insurance. And I know this is basically a snapshot in time, as you said, I believe in my committee, that it's a question similar to this, that it's not up to date. People retire, come and go, et cetera, on a daily basis. But as of a certain date, could you give us that information?
Mr. Chairman, that is an extensive question and data request. Positions by title to include salaries, all the payroll-related items, and fringe benefits. Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, that would be quite an endeavor, and that would be a report this body has not requested in the past, nor has the Budget Office or Human Resource Office prepared in the past. As noted, Budget Office has historically resisted providing point-in-time information because it really does change on a day-to-day basis, making these reports obsolete as they come off the printer. I guess, Mr. Chairman, I would not ordinarily go here, but because the request was so detailed and extensive, I guess I will offer up one of the things we generally don't talk about at budget time, at least in my 20 years at the county, is probably a fundamental misunderstanding of how our positions build a budget. We do have, 4,500 full-time positions in this budget. And when you look at the back of the book for each department, we list all the authorized positions, the number of those titles, and the authorized pay groups associated with those titles. That's very important to the Budget Office because we use each position's salary range with an estimate of, for a new hire, at what step they may come in at. But all those salaries, FICA, pension, an estimate of the average medical cost are all used to build the budget. And they're all used to build each department's request for salaries, for overtime, for FICA, for pension. But, Mr. Chairman, I think what historically individual legislators did not understand is that is the math that builds the payroll budget request. This body does not approve the salary or FICA or pension for any individual position. You are authorizing an appropriation in the aggregate for each department's positions. To provide the legislature with the detail of individual employee salary, pension, medical, I'm not the attorney, but I'm going to say that's even subject to a FOIL request. That is personal data, and that would have to be discussed.
Through the chair, can you also indicate the fund, department, and cost centers charged for each of those corresponding positions? But since you didn't answer that, we can move on. Through the chair, how much, if any, general fund balance is being applied to the park department budget? And if general fund is being applied, what is the breakdown of restricted versus unrestricted?
Mr. Chairman, for our proposed budget for 2023, I'm sorry, was the question, what is the appropriated fund balance?
If general fund balance is being applied, what is the breakdown of restricted versus unrestricted?
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Chairman. The 2023 proposed budget seeks to use $216,000 of appropriated fund balance, but none of that is in the general fund. That would all be within the debt service fund, and specifically, it comes from our reserve for bonded debt.
Through the chair, have any capital projects that were included in the 23 through 28 capital improvement plan been delayed, downsized, or canceled? And if so, can you provide us a list of those affected projects and the revised budgets and projected timelines of those?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, none of those projects have been delayed or changed in their scope or cost. I would only clarify for the committee that in 2022, we actually added to the parks capital funds with a $9.4 million cash funding to increase their ability to repair, renovate, and otherwise upgrade existing shelters and lodges.
Through the chair, on page 601, the appropriations for Parks Administration salaries is increasing from $402,379 to $464,000. Can you explain the reasoning behind that?
Page 601, Mr. Chairman, yes, this is our Parks Administration Division within the department. Really, this increase in payroll is directly related to the salary and step increases as agreed to in our collective bargaining agreements.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. And also through the chair to you, the Seneca Park Zoo, the salary is increasing. Is that the same reason from 1.6 to 1.9?
Mr. Chairman, that is a large reason for this increase. I am going to point out, however, that on page 606, Seneca Park Zoo, they are adding 3.5 FTEs to this particular division.
As a follow-up to that, does that correlate then to the decrease with the temporary help that they're adding full FTEs as opposed to using temporary help?
Often it does, Mr. Chairman. I don't have the zoo superintendent here tonight, so cannot with 100% accuracy answer that question. Temporary help actually, Mr. Chairman, is increasing a little bit, $14,000.
Through the chair to the administration, is there a current equipment replacement schedule for the Parks Department that includes like heavy equipment, trucks, mowers, tractors, and other vehicles?
Chairman, was that for the Parks Department in aggregate?
Yes, sir.
Yes, there is, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And you mentioned in your presentation about the hotel motel tax being used for the zoo, the $850,000. Can you tell us what that will be being used for at the zoo?
Mr. Chairman, when we allocate property tax, hotel tax, or sales tax, and really we only, of those three tax items, we allocate hotel tax to a particular department. We do not earmark those funds for any particular item of expenditure. For Seneca Park Zoo, the $850,000 in occupancy tax support simply contributes to the overall support for its appropriations and alleviates the need to tax real property owners the additional $850,000. So it's not an earmark, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And through the chair, in the Parks Administration went from 14.6 million 22 proposed for a 20, and then in 23, it's down to 5.1 million. What is the reduction, a reason for the reduction in administration there?
Mr. Chairman, that that dramatic reduction in overall appropriations is largely driven by the $9.4 million that the legislature approved as a cash funding of the system-wide improvement project.
Thank you. And through the chair, how many visitors have we had through the Nature Center in the past year? From a curiosity standpoint?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we just need to clarify what nature center, please.
Cummings.
Mr. Chairman, I was just reminded by our Chief Deputy Attorney, Cummings Nature Center is actually run by the Rochester Museum and Science Center, so it's
It
not a
is.
direct parks over.
I realized that after I asked that. What nature center? Do we have a nature center that we run through the county?
Horticultural. I think it was referred to the horticultural, across from the Parks Department office.
Through the chair, Director Meredith here, we'll get that answer for you in writing before the next ledge meeting.
Thank you. And just two more questions through the chair, and then I'll be done. At the Highland Park, when will the children's pavilion, when will that construction start?
Through the chair, we will be going into design and bid documents this year. Hopefully, we will be having breaking ground later this summer.
Through the chair, one more question in regards to Highland Park. The three memorials that are located there, has there been discussion or planning on the maintenance of those?
Through the chair, can you repeat the question, please?
Yep. On the memorials located at Highland Park, has there been any planning on for future maintenance of those memorials?
There is not through the chair, there's not a specific project right now. Maintenance is an ongoing thing at the park. So if you have something more specific, I might be able to give you a more specific answer on it.
In specific, through the chair to administration, the military, I'm referring to World War II, the Vietnam veterans, et cetera. Same answer? Or?
Yeah, I'll get back to you with what the program is that we have on a regular basis through the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor.
Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be brief, but as the longest-serving veteran in the body, I would greatly appreciate it, because if it's just part of regular park maintenance, it won't have any focus. And there are a lot of veterans here who care a lot about those locations. So any details you can provide will be greatly appreciated. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to refer back to Legislator McCabe's first question about the openings and things like that. This is the FOIA response that I mentioned in the earlier committee, and it indicates that for parks, for example, it indicates that there are 387 positions filled on 172.75 authorized. Now, my guess is a lot of that is many parks positions are temporary, part-time, and summer type jobs. We list every year. So that's explicable, I think, by that, and I don't want to ask about that. But when you look at human services, which I know is not part of this committee, it shows 1,128 budgeted positions, but only 883 filled positions, for a net difference of 245 open positions. Now, I know you stated earlier, Mr. Franklin, this didn't come through you, but somebody in the administration provided this as a FOIA response. My goal in trying to get this information is just to see how much of a delta there is. And again, it doesn't have to be precise. It's not going to be precise. between, what we are budgeting for personnel and what we are actually spending for personnel? And where is that delta ending up? Can you do anything to kind of at least give me a general answer on that? Because I'm going to leave my FOIA in, and I fully expect it to be responded to because clearly information is available.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I can respond, and I appreciate finally in my career being asked that particular question. Because that, I believe, is what the legislatures are actually interested in, the general management of staff, and its staff employment and retention, and what we budget. Departments, we build salary budgets and related items based on the department's need for its staff, whether that be parks, whether that be human services. And we build a budget based on the programs they run and what their individual priorities are. Now, we know, you mentioned human services, we know, I'll say politically with a small p, we need to fund our examiners and caseworkers, our child protective services workers, and we're going to make damn sure human services has the appropriations they need to hire their staff. Problem is, nobody wants to work in human services. All right, I'm exaggerating a little bit. So they have vacancies. Well, we do apply a vacancy factor within human services, like we do many other departments, because we have to reflect that in real life, we have a hard time filling positions. We apply a very, very, very small vacancy factor to human services because we want to make very sure that they have the appropriations they need. Where does that funding go when they have vacancies? It goes to the County of Monroe. Appropriations are authority to spend. And we appreciate that authority within our Human Services Office. And when the employees don't materialize, we spend less than what this body authorizes us to spend. Now, some of that offsets the fact that we're bringing in less revenue because within a variety of departments across the county, human services, you have to spend $1 to generate several pennies of state and federal reimbursement. So if you don't have the staff, you're not drawing down the revenue. So some of the savings offsets the lower revenue. Some of the savings in payroll offsets the fact that departments may not generate all the revenue they think they're going to generate, like in Parks Department. In my career in Monroe County, it's too hot to go to the zoo, or it's too cold and rainy to go to the zoo. Therefore, Parks zoo revenue has fallen short of the budget. It happens. So some of the salary savings in Parks Department offsets the fact that they're really not bringing in all the revenues they told you in the budget they were going to generate. Sometimes the savings and appropriations, after you factor in you didn't bring in as much revenue, sales tax didn't really pan out the way we thought, people don't pay their property taxes. So after you net out all those appropriations fall down to fund balance. And because we've had savings the past couple years in our budgeted appropriations for payroll, we've been able to put forward, with this legislature's assistance, opportunities to provide across the board pay raises of perhaps 2%. We did back in, I think it was May of this year. We provided pay group upgrades to some sensitive positions, quite a number of sensitive positions. I believe close to 952 positions within human services were upgraded, and you'll see upgraded pay in this budget. Some of those upgrades occurred in 22. Those savings also allow us to provide new hire and retention bonuses of $500 a quarter. Rough estimate was like $6 million, if I recall correctly. So the savings are going to generate, the savings that were generated in payroll in 21 and throughout 22 are funding those employee retention bonuses. So that is the delicate balance, Mr. Chairman, in budgeting for payroll and benefits.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, probably Mr. Franklin. Um, I fully agree and understood, I think, your answer. I do want to comment on one thing. I think that within the Human Services Department, we have situations where we have highly qualified, degreed personnel working in jobs that you could basically make the same amount of money, sales clerk at Kohl's or a stocking clerk at Kohl's. And nothing against Kohl's, just you could, but a whole lot less pressure that comes from like the ladies that come up here every month before full edge to talk to us about child protective services. Those stick out in my mind, and there are others that come up a little less frequently, perhaps. I would encourage the administration to take aggressive actions to, assuming what the ladies say is correct, and I don't believe them to be liars, that we should probably take some aggressive actions to make our pay more competitive with surrounding counties. Because I'm on the Inter-County Association, I get a chance to talk to a lot of legislators in the surrounding counties every month. And they are kind of happy that they pay more than we do and steal some good staff. I'd like to put a smirk, take that smirk off their face next time I go to a meeting, or at least sometime before the end of next year when I go to my last meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for that commentary. It does not fall on deaf ears. I made it quite clear to the previous administration and the current executive administration that the greatest threat facing Monroe County was its pay and benefits. And I say that because in the early 2000s, this county was under real financial stress. And it was important at that time to control payroll costs. At that time, Mr. Chairman, Monroe County paid better than our surrounding counties. And that was an important feature, an important method of controlling overall budgeted costs. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, it's not 2004 anymore. We haven't evolved with the times, but we have the ability. Over the past 6-7 years, the county has had marginally incremental improved financial position. And I will say, if there's a silver lining to the COVID-19 pandemic, it's a financial silver lining, because we are now in a much better financial position and budgetary position that the administration is able to take advantage and provide additional pay raises. And I appreciate the commentary that we take aggressive action. It's probably necessary. The executive administration probably agrees. As the budget director and accountant, I'm a little hesitant to take aggressive action, but I certainly understand the need.
And through you, Mr. Chair, just one more comment. There are other things the administration could do that won't affect you, Mr. Franklin, such as for pre-K special education type programs, putting some open vocal pressure on our state government to take action where we cannot. I applaud the administration for taking the actions they have on early intervention where we control rates. I don't think it's adequate yet, but it's bigger steps than anybody else is taking. But we're a big county. We should carry some weight in Albany. We should have our state representatives standing up and saying, hey guys, let's raise those state rates that the counties don't control, because the kids are in fact our future. And I've seen the impact of special needs provided services, occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, and all the others. I have a neighbor that uses them. A young girl went from barely being able to walk without falling down, and frankly, she did fall down a lot, to where she's now riding a bicycle, hopping across the creek in our backyards, at mutual backyards, et cetera. So I'd like to see us get more vocal as a county administration in support of those things, and push some of our state legislators to be more vocal in support of those things as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor.
Baines, Legislator Baines.
On the most specific recent point, do we have data that makes clear that counties around us are paying professional employees more than we are, not just at the starting salary point, but after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, et cetera? Is that data available as part of the profile of the way we pay our employees?
Mr. Chairman, our Human Resources Office routinely surveys regional counties and some not so regional, for example, Erie County. Erie County and Onondaga are honestly the most comparable to us, even though they're not in our region. But yes, our Human Resource Office routinely surveys surrounding counties in their payroll data. And that's exactly how we know we don't measure up.
You, Mr. Chairman, I would love to see some of that data because, I did a lot of this work for many, many years, and starting salary and lifetime earnings are dramatically different. And quite frankly, there's been a lot of anecdotal comments about the way we pay our employees. And as a legislator, I would love to see some of that comparable and comparative data to both our contiguous counties and to our sister counties in the form of Onondaga. So I would ask for that, that we be provided that so that we can actually be informed and not be working from anecdotes with respect to this point that our employees are not paid well. If they're not paid well, I want to know that. So I would love to see that data through you, Mr. Chair, to the administration. I have a second question for you, through you, Mr. Chairman. Has it been the practice of this county through the multiple administrations you served, Mr. Franklin, that we do not hire for every appropriated position, and that we, in fact, have not hired for every appropriated position for many years?
Mr. Chairman, the first point, I would like to assure this group that the county's executive administration has a plan for employee pay and negotiating our collective bargaining agreements, and they have a vision, and so far have been doing quite well in stepping forward in that plan and vision. Regarding the second point of the question, I assume the legislator is asking, Mr. Chairman, at least in a longer experience, my 20-year career at the county, I have to fall back on my original answer regarding individual employee pay, Mr. Chairman, and that this county does hire for its vacant positions. I'm not going to tell you that it is always hired quickly, and there is a reason for that. Departments in their budget proposals tell us how much revenue they're going to generate, whether through its fees and charges, federal reimbursement, state reimbursement, and when those revenues don't materialize, that is a drain on Monroe County resources. That means if a department were to exaggerate how much revenues they would collect, we wouldn't tax quite as much. And when those revenues don't materialize, that puts the county at financial risk. And we try to minimize the financial risk facing the county. So in prior experience, we have a process by which departments request vacancies to be filled, and there is a small review team that looks at each of those requests. They may ask questions of the operating managers in those departments about the true need for that position, and then we'll render an approval to fill that position.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, isn't it true that this longstanding practice of not filling every position has produced fund balance?
Not every year, Mr. Chairman. This county has lost money and made money in any particular year. In fact, this county has managed on a very slim fund balance. I have a chart virtually no fund balance to the fund balance we see today.
Wasn't it the case that in several years ago or 2 years ago that this legislature harvested $2.5 million out of the budget, claiming that that money had not been spent and was available for them to spend?
Mr. Chairman, we harvested $2.5 million by trimming every department's budgets for cell phones and travel.
No further questions.
Legislator Hebert.
Through you to the body, regards to Legislator Bain's question regarding data of my, I'll call them allegations. New York State Association of Counties publishes information about that kind of stuff frequently, readily available on their website. I would encourage you to go look there because that's what I base my stuff on. So you may or may not find exactly what you're looking for at any given point in time, but you will, or it may not be as timely as you'd like. It might be from 2018 or something, but you will see direct comparisons. And lastly, on the referral Mr. Legislator Baines made to the $2.5 million, I'd like to note that the county executive, in fact, during his presentation, highlighted the Veterans Ecotherapy Program, which was the very first thing funded from that. And so it obviously went to some good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor.
Other legislator have any questions? I have a few for administration. Some are administrative in nature, excuse me. Some are budgetary in nature, so I'll start. To the administration, could someone give us a status on the improvements of the zoo? What has been completed in 2022 and what is planned for 2023?
Through the chair, in 2022, the Trailside Cafe was completed. We are now in the phase of the Tropics, where we're in the enabling phase of Tropics, where the new service road is being constructed and the improved path between the new exterior fence and the residence will be. Coming up this year, there will be the bid package that will go out for the Tropics building. And then later in the year, the bid package for the front entry area for the zoo will be put out.
A couple other questions to the director. Can you explain the functions of the Parks Representative Group 7?
Through the chair, I'm going to turn that one over to Deputy Kiley.
Through the chair, the position is the a representative that handles the phones and special events for administration.
Sorry, I have problems hearing. Could you speak a little louder so I understand, please?
Very good, sir. Through the chair, the question, the personnel being requested, that representative handles special events on behalf of the county. So the administration of events, phones, logging of the lodges and shelters, etc.
Someone also, through the administration, also explained the functions of the part-time bus driver?
Through the chair, I believe that would be the staff that would run the shuttle at the zoo, if I'm not mistaken.
I was wondering about that. Thank you. Moving on to golf courses. Could the administration discuss what improvements have been taken in 2022 and what is being planned for 2023 with regard to our 3 golf courses?
Through the chair, to the chair, improvements, we made some capital improvements using some of the older CIP money at Churchville Park this year, installing new irrigation system there. We have repaired roofs at our barns at the golf courses. We've also replaced old, outdated lighting inside the labor centers and equipment barns. In 2023, Director Kiley, Deputy Kiley can talk about the list of improvements we have for all 3 golf courses this coming year.
Through the chair, in addition to the director's comments for improvements made in 2022, we've also resurfaced a significant portion of roadways and parking lots within our county golf courses, and are also undergoing restroom renovations at various locations. In 2023, we are at this time moving forward with the identification and development of plans for the installation of subsurface drainage at a variety of different locations on the golf courses, replacement of irrigation heads at various locations, the re-sodding and re-leveling of tee boxes, and the installation of continuous golf cart paths on the courses.
To the administration, is the supervisor of the golf courses a county employee or is he or she a contractual employee?
To the chair, the employee is a Monroe County employee.
Thank you. Another question to administration. Does the Parks Department lease its facilities to clubs, organizations, long or short term, such as Jack's Place? And I don't know what the status of that is right now. Is it being leased out or is it just operated by the county?
I believe you're talking about the Duran Clubhouse.
That's
That is operated by Monroe County.
Okay. Another update for myself here. Under the recreation education programs, can you identify activities or programs the department sponsors for the public, like ski lessons at Northampton, any other activities like that?
So we have Swain that's currently running activities at Northampton Park, the ski hill there, and also at Powder Mills Park.
Dog parks. How many dog parks? We operate 3, or is there future plans for additional dog parks in Monroe County?
Monroe County currently operates 2, one at Ellison Park and one at Grease Canal Park. We do have a proposed new park at Webster, but we also partner with the towns of Sweden, Pittsford, and Henrietta with their dog parks, and we coordinate some of the permits that are given for those parks. So we are hoping for an approval for this new dog park in Webster here in the next month or so.
There must be a demand for dog parks then in Monroe County, correct?
There is. Town of Webster approached us in 2020 regarding this one that's being proposed in Webster. They did do a follow-up questionnaire out in one of their quarterly publications. Almost 1,000 people responded to that questionnaire, showing that there is a lot of support for them. It's this one in Webster is also kind of located in an area where there aren't any of the other major ones close by.
Final question is, construction start on the Children's Pavilion?
The Children's Pavilion, through the chair, to the chair, the Children's Pavilion RFP is poised to come before this body for action to select a consultant. That will likely happen in the next several months. That is through the Department of Environmental Services. Once the once the consultant has been chosen, the design development process will occur, which will likely take us through the summertime for hopes, and it's a most aggressive schedule for groundbreaking later this fall and construction through the winter of this year. But that's an extremely aggressive timeline that could certainly shift depending on how the design development process goes.
That will be, again, through the administration. Will that be located across from the Parks Administration Building?
Through the chair, to the chair, the Children's Pavilion will be located east of the administration building, kind of on top of the hill there, directly adjacent to the overlook bathrooms.
If I recall, that would be about approximately when it was operating in the 1960s. I remember going there once, so a long time ago. My final comments, again, I want to thank Director Meredith and his staff for the excellent programs they put out, the facilities, the programs, and serving the residents of Monroe County. Finance Director Franklin, thank you so much for coming tonight and addressing our questions. Thank you so much. Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. You have the September 28th, 2022 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Are there any other matters to come before the committee? There being no other matters, the November 28th, 2022 meeting of the Recreation Education Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Recreation Education Committee will be on Monday, December 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m.